Malcolm and Theresa were the definition of power couple. Two high-flying careers, two booming bank accounts, and now two babies. When the doctor announced it's twins, Theresa didn't cry tears of joy. She laughed. "God, you know me well," she said, placing a hand on her swollen belly. "I don't have time for popping out children like popcorn. One today, one next year, one after that. Giving me two at once? Perfect. Let's close the factory." Before the nurse could even wipe the babies clean, Malcolm was already on his phone. "Yes, I need 4 professional nannies. No, not one, not two, 4. I'm not running a charity. I'm building an empire. These kids need round-the-clock care. Shifts, feeding, burping, lullabies, you all figure it out. And pack your bags. You're not going home again. Once my wife brings those babies home, they become your full-time responsibility." The day Harris and Callista came home, the house turned into a mini daycare. Nannies running around, bottles clinking, lullabies playing on repeat. Meanwhile, Malcolm was in his study on Zoom calls. And Theresa? She was already eyeing her heels and laptop. Barely 2 weeks after delivery, Theresa was back in the office. High heels, power suits, red lipstick, the whole show. "My career is my life," she said dramatically, tossing her hair. "Motherhood is cute, but deadlines are sexier." From that day, Harris and Callista only saw their parents once a month. The nannies called it Parents' Day. The kids? They just thought it was the monthly visit from those rich strangers who smelled like perfume in boardrooms. "Mommy, who's that man that always comes with you?" Harris once asked innocently. "That's your father, darling," she replied with a smile, already checking her emails. "Now, give him a hug. We only have 45 minutes. Callista was smarter. She stopped calling them mom and dad altogether. "They're just guests with matching noses," she once told her teddy bear. At 8 years old, Harris and Callista were no longer clueless toddlers. They were now old enough to notice things. Things like how other kids ran into their parents' arms after school, while they stood alone, holding their bags like abandoned luggage at an airport. Every time it was parents' talk day at school, they both sat quietly, trying not to cry. The teacher would ask the class to share fun stories with their parents. "I bake cookies with my mom every Sunday," one girl said proudly. "My dad teaches me how to ride a bicycle," a boy added with a grin. Another child chimed in, "We play board games every Friday night, and my mom always pretends to lose." The class roared with laughter. Then it was Callista's turn. She froze. She looked at Harris. "Our parents come once a month. They wear nice clothes, and they give us chocolates." The class was silent. One kid raised a hand. "Only once a month? Why?" Callista forced a smile. "They're allergic to children." The class laughed, but Harris didn't. That evening, when they got home, they went straight to the garden. It was the quietest place in the mansion, where the nannies wouldn't find them easily. Callista sat on the swing, Harris on the grass. "I wish they loved us," whispered. "They do," Callista said, wiping her tears. "They just don't have time to show it." But love without time feels fake. Then he added, "Sometimes I wonder if they even remember our birthdays without the calendar app reminding them." Callista reached out and held his hand. They didn't always talk much, but when they did, it was deep, raw, real. "I hate Parents' Day," she said quietly. "Me too," Harriser. "It feels like meeting strangers who look like us." Sometimes at night, they would sneak under the same blanket, hold hands, and cry quietly. They weren't crying because they lacked toys or food or clothes. They were crying because they had everything except the one thing children need most: presence. Love you could see, care you could feel, a voice that said, "I'm here." But what they got instead was 45 minutes a month, rushed selfies, fake laughter, and a whole lot of perfume and guilt. And the most painful part? They didn't even know how to miss what they never truly had. Then, one quiet Saturday morning, the sun was out, the birds were singing, and Harris? Harris was shaking on the bed like he was fighting a war inside his tiny body. His temperature was high, too high. His eyes rolled back. Callista screamed. The nannies rushed in. The driver didn't even wait for orders. He carried Harris like his own son and zoomed straight to the family hospital. The doctor ran several tests and sighed heavily. Then he picked up his phone and called Malcolm. "Sir, it's serious. Harris is in critical condition. He needs a direct blood transfusion immediately." Malcolm's voice thundered through the phone. "You know my job, doctor. I'm an international figure, for heaven's sake. I have a meeting tomorrow where I'll be receiving an award in front of presidents and billionaires." The doctor tried to cut in, but Malcolm wasn't done. "If I give blood today, where would I get the strength to stand tall tomorrow? Use your brain. Get the blood from anywhere. I'll pay. Just save my son." And with that, he ended the call like he had just finished ordering pizza, not dealing with a dying child. The doctor sighed, wiped his face, and shook his head. "Let me try their mom," he called Theresa. The moment she picked up, her voice was cold and sharp. "If this is about my children," she snapped, "don't say a word. You already know I won't come. Please fix it. Send me the bill and don't call me again." Click. The doctor dropped his phone slowly, staring into space. "Not one of them," he muttered. "Not even one has time for these children. God, this is too bad." Meanwhile, Callista, who had refused to leave her brother's side, had heard every single word. She was sitting quietly in the corner, hugging her knees, her eyes swollen from tears. So the hospital did the only thing they could. They sent Harris's blood sample to every nearby hospital. But the result that came back left the doctors even more confused. Harris's blood was rare. Not just rare, almost strange. The usual matches didn't work. His blood had a rare gene marker that only a specific type could match. The nannies were restless. "What if we lose him?" one whispered. "The parents won't even come for the funeral." Callista didn't sleep. She sat beside him every night, holding his hand, whispering stories into his ear. "Please don't go, Harris," she cried. "You're all I have." Then, exactly 1 week later, a hospital 2 cities away called. "We found a match." They rushed the donor in by ambulance, completed the transfusion, and within 24 hours, Harris was breathing steadily again. The doctor looked at him like a miracle had just occurred. "He's strong," he said, "and lucky." Callista smiled through her tears and kissed her brother's hand. The day Harris was discharged, there were no balloons, no welcome hugs, no "we missed you, son" from his parents. Just the same cold mansion, the same polished floors, and the same distant silence. Callista held his hand tightly as they walked up to their room. Neither of them said a word. Once inside, they locked the door. Click, then silence. Not the sleepy kind, the angry kind, the broken kind. Every maid in the house knocked. One even tried bringing cake. Another tried pizza. One knocked so hard the doorknob nearly gave up. "Go away," Callista screamed. "We are not hungry. We are not dying of hunger like our parents pretend we are." "Stop banging," Harris added. "We are not zoo animals. We're fine." For hours, no sound came from the room, until night came. That's when the chief nanny, the one who had been with them since they were babies, stood at the door. She didn't knock loudly, just a gentle tap followed by a soft voice. "My babies, please open the door. It's me, Aunt Grace." Silence. Then Callista's voice came, cold and clear. "Only on one condition." The nanny leaned closer. "What condition, my dear?" "You must agree to our terms." The nag. "Okay, I agree. I promise." The door opened, but instead of running into her arms, Harris and Callista sat on the floor, backs against the wall, eyes empty. Callista's lips trembled. We want to run away. What? We want to go to the orphanage, Harris added calmly. We'll be better off there. At least those kids know they don't have parents. We're living a lie. The nanny's heart skipped. She walked in slowly and sat beside them. Callista looked her straight in the eye. Is that so bad? Wanting to stop pretending? Harris added, Our parents made their choice. They chose meetings, awards, and camera lights. They didn't choose us. The nanny's voice cracked. But your parents love you. They're just busy. Busy? Callista laughed bitterly. Busy being celebrities while their son almost died? And what was Mum busy with? Harris said. Oh, right. She was allergic to hearing about her own children. Aunt Grace pulled them both into a trembling hug. Is that your term? Running away? They both nodded, eyes still watery. Yes, Harris said, since they've moved on without us, we'll do them a favor and move out of their lives too. Tears rolled down the nanny's cheeks. No, you can't do that, children. Your parents, they're blessings. Callista pulled away, her face blank. Then let them go and bless someone else. We're tired. That night, the nanny stayed in their room, lying on the floor beside their bed like a mother would. But as the children drifted to sleep, she sat upright, staring into space. Years later, Callista was just 14 when it happened. She went to the bathroom that morning and saw blood in her underwear. For a second, she froze. Her heart skipped. Then she remembered what her teacher said. Girls, whenever you see blood for the first time, don't panic. It's a sign you're growing into a woman. But the first person to tell is your mother. Not your friend, not your aunt, not Google. Your mother. Callista smiled to herself and whispered, I'm growing up. Excited, nervous, and hoping to feel like a real daughter for once, she picked up her phone and dialed the one person she believed would care to hear that. Her mom. The phone rang twice. Teresa picked up, her voice smooth and well-practiced like a politician reading a campaign script. Oh, my princess, how are you doing, sweetheart? Do you need anything? Did one of the maids mess up your snacks again? Callista giggled a little and spoke quickly, excited and hopeful. Mom, yes, there's something I need to tell you. Something really strange just happened to me. Before she could finish, Teresa cut in sharply. Okay. I've got exactly 1 minute to answer this call. And sweetie, I think you've already overstayed your welcome on this one. I'll call you back, my darling, to hear you out properly. I'm in between a charity interview and an un-Zoom meeting. Very tight schedule. You understand, right? Callista froze. 1 minute? Overstayed her welcome? Suddenly, her excitement died, like a balloon that had just been popped. Teresa continued without guilt. And besides, whatever it is, tell Aunt Grace. She's basically your second mom, right? Click. The call ended. Callista stood there, staring at the phone like it had betrayed her. She went back to her room quietly, sat on her bed, and whispered to herself, I guess I don't have a real mother. She didn't cry. Not that day. But something inside her cracked. A small piece broke off quietly. Aunt Grace, the nanny, came in later and noticed her change. Callista only said, It started. Grace nodded, hugged her, and gave her a clean pad. I know. That night, Grace cried for her. She knew then the love these kids craved was not in this house, and maybe, just maybe, they didn't belong here at all. Because Teresa's rejection wasn't just neglect. It might be something else. One peaceful afternoon, Harris and Callista were seated in the massive living room. The kind of room big enough to echo sadness, flipping through channels just to kill time. The silence between them was loud as usual. Then suddenly, the news came on. Breaking news! International recognition for a phenomenal woman. The screen lit up with their mother's face, Teresa, smiling, waving, glowing like a goddess in a sea of camera flashes. Behind her was a crowd clapping like she had just saved the world from destruction. Teresa Malcolm, The anchor announced proudly, has just received the Humanitarian Mother of the Year award after rescuing over 5,000 girl children from bullying, abandonment, and neglect in just 6 months. Neglect? Callista's eyes widened. The international speaker at the event continued. She's not just a boss. She's a mother to these girls, giving them hope, listening to their pain, visiting their homes, standing in courtrooms for them. She's their voice when they can't speak. Her dedication, her kindness, her warmth. These children confide in her because she gives them what no one else does: time and love. The camera then zoomed in on their father, Malcolm, standing tall beside her with his usual boardroom smile. He hugged her tightly and said proudly into the microphone, "Theresa, you've made me and your children proud. Thank you." That was the moment. Callista didn't know when the tears began to fall. Silent at first, then heavy. Her whole chest tightened like something broke inside. Even Harris, who had been quiet all day, couldn't hold his own tears. He buried his face in his palms, shaking slightly. They were not tears of pride. They were tears of pain, of confusion, of betrayal that even awards couldn't polish away. "So, she has time for other children?" Callista whispered. 5,000 strangers? But not her own too, Harris added with a bitter laugh. "I guess we're not good enough to be rescued." That day, something inside them shut down. Whatever hope they were secretly clinging to died. They didn't scream. They didn't throw tantrums. They just sat there, broken, watching their mother be celebrated for giving the love they had begged for all their lives. Then Harris leaned closer to Callista and whispered, voice shaking but firm, "Since we know how much it hurts to be neglected, let's start our own family today, and we'll make sure our children never feel this kind of pain." Callista nodded, wiping her tears. That was the day they gave up on their family. But it was also the day they promised to become the kind of parents they never had. The beginning of a very different legacy. From that unforgettable day, something shifted in Harris and Callista, but not the kind of shift anyone expected. They didn't cry anymore. They didn't sulk in silence or slam doors. No more begging for attention. No more waiting for Parents' Day. It was as if the pain had finally packed its bags and left the house. Instead, they smiled. They laughed. They glowed. Even the walls of the mansion felt it. The nannies were the first to notice. "Ah, these children have become adults overnight," one whispered to the others in the kitchen, peeking through the curtains. "See how peaceful everywhere is, like we sprinkled holy water." The drivers nodded in agreement, sipping their tea. Now maturity be this. They don't tire to expect anything from those their career parents. Nay, acceptance de heal person pass. Even the security guards gossiped through their walkie-talkies. "Confirmed, these Pekin Don resigned from emotional employment. Now not joy contract dem sign." Truly, the house became warm again. Not because Malcolm and Theresa returned, no, but because the children chose not to let pain control them anymore. Harris and Callista spent nearly every hour together, giggling at silly things, planning imaginary futures, talking about the kind of house they'd build one day, with a treehouse, a garden, and a big, loud family. No nannies, no maids, just love and real presence. Yes, they still argued sometimes about TV remotes or who got the bigger slice of cake, but now their quarrels ended in laughter, like best friends. Like survivors who had found a reason to live beyond the shadows of their parents' names. Callista, now wiser beyond her years, once told Harris with a grin, "You know what? If healing was a school, I think we're in final year." And Harris chuckled, "Final year? Babe, we're valedictorians." The house didn't know what magic had happened, but Harris and Callista knew, because sometimes children who are ignored don't grow bitter. They grow clever. A few months later, on a Saturday morning, the kind that looked peaceful, but trouble had already stretched and yawned before the sun came up. Callista was coming down the long, shiny staircase of their mansion, rubbing sleep from her eyes and humming to herself. She had told the cook earlier she wanted yam and fried eggs, her favorite. But just as she reached the fourth step from the bottom, her leg slipped. Her head hit the stairs, and the loud thud echoed through the house like a gunshot. Screams filled the air. Maids dropped their mops. The cook forgot the pot on fire, and the driver ran in with foam still on his shaving stick. They rushed Callista to the family hospital. She was pale. She was cold. She wasn't waking up. The doctor did what any human being with a heart would do. He called the mother. Ring, ring. Hello, Theresa answered, her voice crisp and busy. Madam, please, your daughter Callista is... Before he could finish, Theresa hissed like a pressed kettle. Why must I always be physically present for you to do your job? That's what I call pure eye service. Save her, treat her, stitch her, whatever. Just send me the bill. Click. She ended the call before the doctor could even reply. He looked at the phone like it had just insulted his destiny. He called again. No answer. Again. Still no answer. The man sighed heavily, rubbed his forehead, and finally typed a message. Just one line. Your daughter's case is urgent. I suggest you show up, madam. This is not a bill matter. 10 minutes later, his phone rang. Theresa. 4 missed calls back to back like a panicking politician. On the 5th call, the doctor finally picked. I'm not saying anything on this phone, he said coldly. Come to the hospital in person. That's final. And with that, he ended the call. Evening came. Theresa stormed into the hospital like a tornado wearing high heels. Where is she? She asked the nurse, almost pushing the poor woman aside. Where's my daughter? Tell me she's okay. The doctor came out quietly, holding a clipboard, his eyes calm but deep. He looked like someone who had seen a ghost and was still arguing with it. Theresa rushed to him, holding his sleeve. Please tell me it's not what I'm thinking. Just say she's fine, she's alive, and I'll donate to the hospital building fund. Please, doctor. He gave a faint smile, then slowly turned the clipboard toward her and said softly, Madam, your daughter is alive, but she is 5 months pregnant. Silence. Just like that, the air left the room. It was as though the world paused for a moment to gasp. Theresa blinked. What? What did you say? The doctor cleared his throat and repeated, slower this time. She's 5 months pregnant. Theresa staggered back like someone slapped her with a hardcover book. No, not my daughter. Not Callista. She's just a child. She doesn't even have time for boys. I made sure. Oh, yes, the doctor cut in with a touch of sarcasm. You made sure she had time for everything else in your absence. Theresa stood frozen. Tears pushed their way to her eyes, but pride blocked them halfway. The doctor shrugged, walked past her, and added one final line. You wanted the bill, madam. Now here's the real cost. Theresa didn't wait to blink. The moment she left the hospital, her eyes were already red, not from tears, but from rage hotter than a boiling kettle. She zoomed into the mansion like a hurricane dressed in designer shoes. Where are those good-for-nothing people working in my house? Her voice echoed like thunder. Everyone, and I mean everyone, froze. The maids dropped plates. The nannies paused. The cook almost swallowed his spoon. The security guards left the gate wide open and ran in. The gardener came in with dirt still on his hands. Within seconds, they were all lined up like suspects in a military parade. Theresa scanned their faces like a detective in a crime movie. Then she shouted, Tell me, who impregnated my daughter? Who? Speak up before I have you all locked up and your mouths sewn shut. Dead silence. You could hear a fly coughing. No one dared breathe. One of the young maids almost fainted from fear. Theresa hid sharply. Oh, so now you're all dumb? After all I did for you. I paid you all handsome salaries, fed you like kings, gave you uniforms, gave you beds softer than clouds, and this is how you repay me? Still, silence. Theris's eyes flashed with madness. She grabbed her phone and, with the dramatic speed of a movie villain, dialed the police. Hello, officer? Come to my house immediately. I have a house full of criminals and liars under my roof. Then she turned back to them and barked, all of you, kneel down, hands in the air. I said hands up. They obeyed, trembling like chickens under heavy rain. The drivers, the old chef, even the 60-year-old nanny, all of them down on the tiled floor, hands raised like they were at gunpoint. 5 minutes later, 2 police vans screeched into the compound. The officers jumped down and began shouting, everyone stay in line, move to the van, no one is allowed to speak. That evening, the once peaceful mansion turned into a full-blown crime scene. 1 house, 1 pregnancy, and a whole crowd of suspects. Theresa stormed back into the hospital like a changed woman. At least she thought so. She quietly walked into Callista's room, her heels tapping gently this time. No shouting, no commanding, just silence. And a fake calmness sitting on her face like heavy makeup. She moved to Callista's bedside and slowly touched her forehead. Baby, she whispered like she was a loving mother from a fairy tale. But before her hand could settle, Harris jumped up from the corner chair like a wild lion. Don't touch her. Theresa froze. I said don't. Why are you pretending? As if you care. Harris's voice cracked with anger. Your job needs you more than we need you. Please, just go. We are fine without you. We've been fine. Theresa's eyes widened like someone who saw a ghost. She had never heard Harris shout like that. Never seen his hands shake from rage. Never seen his eyes red from pain. For once, she was speechless. I'm sorry, she muttered, suddenly sounding like a stranger. I know I've been too busy. I failed you. I didn't include you in my life schedule. I thought paying bills was enough. Before she could finish, Callista coughed. Callista! Harris and Theresa shouted at the same time, rushing to her side. Are you okay? Harris asked, his voice trembling. He held her hand tightly. Then Theresa leaned in carefully, her voice low, pretending to be sweet. Callista, darling, who impregnated you? Callista gasped. Harris gasped. They turned and looked at each other like someone just pressed pause on their hearts. Pregnant? They both chorused in shock. For a second, the air went still. Then slowly, very slowly, Callista's shocked expression turned to one of boiling anger. Oh, now I understand, she said with sarcasm dripping from her lips. So this is why you're here. Not because I collapsed, not because I was bleeding, not because I could have died, but because I'm pregnant? Wow. She scoffed, then looked straight into Theresa's eyes. You know what, Mom? Even if they told you I needed a blood transfusion to live, you'd rather donate your money than your time. You would send your assistant to hug me and send the bill with a get well soon voice note. Theresa opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Silence. Harris stood there like a statue. Tears streamed down his face. But this time, not because of shock, but because he knew the truth. 2 days had passed. Theresa had tried everything. Sweet words, fake tears, promises, even threats. But Callista didn't say a word about who got her pregnant. Not one word. Just silence and side eyes. Tired of waiting, Theresa marched into the doctor's office, her heels clapping like a judge entering court. She sat down without greeting. Doctor, please, she started, her voice low but cold. I want you to remove the baby. Abort it. Save my daughter's life and her integrity. I'll pay anything. Just do it. The doctor dropped the pen in his hand and slowly lifted his head. His eyes widened. Excuse me? He asked, surprised. Theresa leaned forward as if trying to bribe the air. I said remove it. This pregnancy is a disgrace. If people find out, do you know what that will do to my name? My position, my awards, my dignity. The doctor folded his arms and sat back. So, this is about you, not her? Teresa blinked. Well, it's for all of us, but mostly me, she said honestly. The doctor sighed deeply. Madam, I don't think that's the best solution. Let's allow the life in her to grow. This child has done nothing wrong, and your daughter, her body is too fragile to go through such damage now. The stress alone might ruin her completely. Teresa's eyes narrowed. Damage? She repeated, like it was a new vocabulary. Doctor, I'm trying to prevent damage to me. The doctor nodded slowly, keeping his calm. I understand. But first, allow me to run some tests on her to check if she's fit for such arrangement. Teresa rolled her eyes. Fine. Do whatever you want and get rid of that shame, please. She turned to leave, but suddenly, sirens wailed. 2 girls were rushed into the emergency ward on stretchers. One was unconscious. The nurses shouted for oxygen. The other girl screamed one name again and again. Callista! Callista! Where is she? Teresa turned back, confused. The doctor rushed out too, pushing a nurse aside. Teresa's heart began to beat faster. What was going on? Who were those girls? Why were they calling her daughter's name? Not quite long, another 3 girls were rushed into the emergency room. The doctor and nurses jumped into action again. But what shocked everyone the most, all 3 girls had one thing in common. They were all pregnant. They were all teenagers. And worst of all, they all lived on the same street. The doctor stared at their admission records in confusion. This can't be a coincidence. Teresa, who was standing nearby, looked sharply at the doctor. What do you mean? The nurse whispered. Doctor, this street again. That's 5 now. With Callista, that's 6 teenage girls, pregnant, all from the same area. Teresa's heart skipped. She felt her knees weaken. Callista, on the same street, echoed in her head. She slowly turned to the doctor and said, almost in a whisper, so, you're saying whoever did this to them could be the same person who got my daughter pregnant? The room went cold. The air became heavy. The mystery was now bigger. Who was this hidden predator, preying on young girls from the same street? Teresa sat quietly in the hospital hallway, her hands cold, her legs shaking like jelly. She had managed to put up a strong face for 4 whole days, but now she was breaking. Her fingers trembled as she picked up her phone and dialed Malcolm's number. Ring. Hello, sweetheart, Malcolm answered. His voice relaxed, full of calm. Teresa swallowed hard. Malcolm, I've been with the children for 4 days now. I didn't want to disturb you because of your exams and events and all your important meetings. But I can't do this alone anymore. Malcolm chuckled lightly. What is it now? Come on, Teresa. What problem is too big that money can't solve? Just send the bill and let's move on. I'll see them all on Parents' Day. Teresa's jaw tightened, her voice cracked. Malcolm, our daughter, Callista, she's pregnant. Dead silence. She continued, barely whispering, and not just pregnant, she's 5 months gone already. Malcolm froze on the line. Teresa waited. Then his voice returned, lower, colder. Teresa, are you serious right now? Please don't play this kind of joke. Not today. Teresa laughed bitterly. Oh yes, because I'm known for my comedy shows, right? Malcolm, I've been in the hospital begging your daughter to talk, and guess what? 4 other teenage girls from our same street were rushed in too, all of them pregnant. Now tell me, do you still want to pay this off with money? Malcolm's breath caught. What are you saying? Teresa closed her eyes. I'm saying we may not just have a scandal, we may have a predator in our neighborhood. Malcolm's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm coming now. Teresa ended the call slowly, her eyes red with tears. This time, not even power or money could guarantee their safety. Meanwhile, Harris had been sitting beside his sister all day, his fingers gently locked with hers. His voice trembled as he whispered, Please be fine, Callista. I'll stay with you, no matter what. Callista gave a slow nod, her lips curved in a faint smile. I know, Harris. You've always stayed, and I'll get better. For you. For us. As the evening sun dimmed, the door burst open. Their father, Malcolm, stormed in with his usual presence, loud and full of thunder. Callista! Callista! He barked. You just sat there and let this happen? Who's the irresponsible idiot that did this to you? But neither Callista nor Harris looked up. They kept whispering to each other like he didn't exist. The silence was louder than any scream. Malcolm fumed. I'm talking to you, young lady, he growled, raising his hand. But before the slap could land, Harris stood up swiftly and caught it midair. Calm but firm, he said, Mr. Malcolm, kindly return to your office. Last I checked, today isn't your scheduled parents' appearance day. Malcolm froze, his hand weak in Harris's grip, caught off guard by the boldness in his son's eyes. Callista smirked faintly. I'm fine, Dad. And guess what? We'll still be fine. With or without your voice shouting in our faces. Just then, Teresa, who had been sitting at the reception restlessly, rushed in, breathless and pale. They're here. The other parents were at the police station, she stammered. And they said they're looking for Harris. What? Malcolm snapped, turning sharply to his son. But before anyone could speak further, two uniformed officers stepped in, flashing their badges. Are you Harris Malcolm? One of them asked, his tone official but not hostile. Teresa stepped forward protectively. Yes, this is Harris. But may I ask, what's going on? The officer glanced at her briefly and replied, You'll get the full details at the station. The room went silent. Callista's grip on Harris tightened. Harris swallowed hard. Malcolm blinked. And Teresa? She held her breath, praying. As the officers moved closer to take Harris, Callista suddenly let out a cry that froze the air. No! You can't take him, she screamed, clutching his arm tightly. He promised to stay with me. He swore he wouldn't leave my side. Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head violently. We planned our future together, our own little family, one where our children would never have to grow up feeling alone, like we did. The officers paused. Harris stood still, stunned, his eyes locked with hers. Please don't take him away, Callista sobbed. He's the father of my child. The room fell into a deathly silence. Teresa gasped and collapsed to the floor in shock, her hand clutching her chest. Malcolm stumbled backward, landing heavily on the chair behind him like his knees had given out. One of the officers finally broke the silence, pulling out a small file. We understand this is painful, he said, his voice steady but grim. But we have reports that Harris isn't just involved with Callista. He opened the folder slowly and continued. He's also responsible for the pregnancies of 9 other teenage girls, all from the same street. Malcolm raised his head slowly, his eyes wild with disbelief. No, that's not possible, he whispered. Callista blinked, looking at Harris. Is this true? Harris opened his mouth, but no words came out. Just silent, trembling lips. It didn't take long before the news spread like wildfire. Harris Malcolm, teen father of 10? Teresa Malcolm's son at the center of a teenage pregnancy scandal. Is this the end of her legacy? Teresa couldn't believe it. Just 10 months ago, she had been standing on a national stage, holding a crystal plaque for her incredible humanitarian work. Work that had saved over 5,000 vulnerable girls from exploitation and abuse. Her campaign had led to policy changes, safer school environments, and dozens of community support centers. She was a role model, a symbol of hope, a celebrated leader in child advocacy. Now she was a trending disgrace. News channels replayed her award speech, contrasting it with images of Harris being escorted by the police. Comment sections were brutal. How can you save other children and fail in your own home? Maybe if she was present at home, she would have noticed what her kids were doing. That boy didn't just lose his way. He was never guided. And then came the final blow. Her disengagement letter was waiting for her in her inbox. Not even a call. All her international meetings canceled. She sat in her living room, surrounded by silence, her once glowing name now a shadow. Malcolm didn't say much. He went back to his usual business, barely looking up from his files, his face clouded with shame, and his table filled with the list of baby things to buy. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Theresa stared at her reflection in the mirror. No press badge, no power suits, no boardrooms, just a woman with trembling hands and tired eyes, now a full housewife in a home full of noise she failed to hear for years. And it was no longer just Harris and Callista. The 10 pregnant girls, yes, 10, were all under her roof now, assigned to her by the court until investigations were concluded. Apparently, her son had made them his personal project. Now, they were hers. And each day came with a fresh episode of pregnancy madness. One fateful day, Vanessa, one of the girls, cried all day because her craving for grilled pineapple dipped in hot sauce couldn't be met. "I want it now, or my baby will hate me forever," she wailed, flinging a throw pillow at the TV, after Theresa had already promised to get it for her the next day. Another day, the cleaner found Joy fainted in the kitchen. Theresa ran in, screaming, only to find her snoring beside a half-eaten plate of jollof rice. "I just needed to lie down," Joy mumbled, eyes still closed. By the end of week 1, Theresa was unrecognizable, her once polished appearance replaced by baggy gowns, sleep-deprived eyes, and permanently disheveled hair. She scheduled their prenatal checkups, cooked 6 different meals daily to satisfy cravings, cleaned, advised, cried, and sometimes just locked herself in the guest room and screamed into a pillow. She would sit at the dining table at night with her head in her hands, whispering to herself, "I saved 5,000 girls, 5,000, but I couldn't save my 2 children." Every now and then she would look at Harris, silent, broken, and ashamed. And then at Callista, now growing visibly heavier with child, avoiding mirrors. Her home was no longer a sanctuary, it was a battlefield. But deep inside Theresa, something was shifting, a kind of reawakening. She was slowly learning to mother, not just out of duty, but out of presence. And maybe, just maybe, this chaos was her second chance. Hello, besties. What a journey, right? This story reminds us that success at work is good, but success at home is priceless. Let's not forget to be present for the people we love. Sometimes, the ones we think are strong are silently breaking. Moral lessons? Number 1, always listen to your children, no matter how busy you are. Number 2, fame and success mean nothing if your home is in crisis. Number 3, every child needs more than just school fees and shelter. They need attention, time, and love. Number 4, when we fail at home, the world can become a very noisy place. Please, besties, don't forget to like, comment your favorite scene or your thoughts in your own language. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs a wake-up call. I appreciate you all so much. I love you, besties. And as always, God bless you.